Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. So today we're looking at a brand new box that's coming out of Duel Links. It's main box 32 and it's called Infinite Ray. Today we're going to be covering the secret rares. So the first card is number 91, Thunder Spark Dragon. It's a light attribute dragon type Xyz monster. It's rank 4 with 2400 attack and 2000 defense. It requires 3 level 4 monsters. And once per turn, you can activate one of these effects. To detach 3 Xyz materials from this card, to destroy all other face-up monsters on the field, or to detach 5 Xyz materials from this card to destroy all cards your opponent controls. I remember this as being one of the earlier number monsters. It wasn't the first, it was one of the earlier ones. So this kind of explains why this card isn't as good as you might think it is. For starters, I don't actually understand how you're going to get 5 Xyz materials onto this card, unless you've got something that lets you attach them from your hand or from the graveyard, or something like Overlay Regen, which is a spell card which has that type of effect. Otherwise, I don't see you being able to meet that condition. If you can, that's brilliant, because destroying all of your opponent's cards means that you can attack the game if you want to. 2400 attack is okay, but conditions of summoning it are a bit awful. More likely you're going to be able to get the first effect, which is to detach 3 Xyz materials and to get rid of all other face-up monsters on the field. This isn't as good because most players are playing some kind of protection. Power of the Guardians, for example, is an equip spell that does that. You've got various other cards that have that level of protection themselves, or essentially your opponent is going to try and stop you before you're able to bring this card out. So it's not viable at all. It's nice for anyone who is a number hunter who likes these cards, but otherwise it doesn't really have any value to the game. Erratic Dragon King of Atum is a light attribute dragon type Xyz monster. It's a rank 6 with 2400 attack and 2100 defense. It requires 2 level 6 dragon type monsters, and the effect is once per turn you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card, special summon 1 dragon type monster from your deck, and make its attack and defense 0. This card cannot attack during the turn you activate this effect. This card might not seem that powerful, but keep in mind it's during the Xyz era. It doesn't matter that you're summoning a monster with that's going to end up with 0 attack and defense. It's only going to get used as an Xyz material for an Xyz summon. Potentially you're able to get out rank 5, 6, 7, 8, a whole variety of different monsters just from using this effect. And you've got other cards within the game that let themselves be summoned very easily. Fusilia Dragon is it's a decent example of a card that has the ability to just bring itself out just by normal summoning, just through halving its attack and defense. I know it's not the perfect example because that's a machine type, but that can be summoned as an additional side effect of this deck. It's definitely a card you need to be quite worried about and try and remove before your opponent's able to play against you with this effect. Sacred Noble Knight of King Custanin is a light attribute warrior type Xyz monster. It's a rank 4 with 1500 attack and 2500 defense, and it requires 2 or more level 4 Noble Knight monsters. You can detach any number of materials from this card, then target that many cards your opponent controls, return them to the hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Noble Knight Xyz monster from your extra deck except itself, and if you do, attach this card from the graveyard to that monster as material. This is treated as an Xyz summon. You can only use each effect of Sacred Noble Knight of King Custanin once per turn. Personally, this is another one of those archetypes I see within Duel Links within the competitive side, player versus player part, where, Noble Knights are being used a lot more as well. I haven't actually seen this card being played against me, mostly because they tend to go with the other one, which equips all the other equip cards from their graveyard. This can be useful in the point of view that if they feel under threat and they want to remove some your opponent's, stronger monsters, that's a good way to go about it, but it is a slower way. Many of the players I've seen who play this archetype tend to prefer just to use the other one, just to do as much damage and kind of put you into either put you on your guard, or to just wipe you out then and there rather than kind of messing around with this Xyz monster. Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger is a wind attribute dragon type Xyz monster. It's a rank 7 with 2600 attack and 2100 defense. It requires 2 level 7 monsters to summon it, but it can also be summoned by using a rank 5 or 6 Xyz monster you control as material. You transfer its materials to this card, and if this card attacks a defense position monster, you can inflict piercing battle damage. So you remember that conversation I was having with you a little bit earlier about how the Constellar Ptolemy M7 was being used to get rid of all my cards, and then overlay it with to bring this card out to do the piercing battle damage. This is the card I was mentioning, which is the second part of that strategy. I hate you having to see it. It was a very common thing to happen at the beginning of the Xyz era, but people tend to ignore this now because you've got so many different Xyz monsters. It's a very simplistic strategy, but it's nice to see something this old being introduced within Duel Links. Constellar Pollux is a light attribute warrior type level 4 with 1700 attack and 600 defense. Its effect: during the turn this card was normal summoned, you can normal summon one Constellar monster in addition to your normal summon set. You can only gain this effect once per turn, so this helps to just set up for your Xyz summons. It gives you an additional summon, and often some of the other monsters can then upgrade your levels to the point where you can then summon Constellar Pleiades, I think, which is the rank 5. It's got a similar effect to Ptolemy M7, so that's generally the idea for using this effect, rather than to run things like double summon. Constellar Sombra is a light attribute fairy type level 4 with 1550 attack and 1600 defense. Its effect is you can only use each effect of Constellar Sombra once per turn. While this card is in the graveyard, if it was sent there this turn, you can normal summon one Constellar monster for 1 less tribute. You can banish one Constellar monster from your graveyard, then target one Constellar monster in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Also, this card gains the following effect. This turn, you can activate this effect to normal summon one Constellar monster. Okay, so this has more flexibility for your level 5s. It then lets you summon those, or a level 6, as though it's a level 4 or lower monster, which is a decent effect. That means you keep the level of that monster, but you're able to summon it without having to sacrifice. The other thing is this also acts as a bit of a double summon card, which is also quite useful because otherwise most of the Constellar monsters don't tend to special summon each other. They prefer to just use these normal summon effects, unlike something like the Star Seraphs, which are purely special summon effects. Erratic Dragon of Tiffany is a light attribute dragon type level 6 with 2100 attack and 1400 defense. Its effect is if only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. This card cannot attack during a turn it is special summoned this way. When this card is tributed, special summon one dragon type normal monster from your hand, deck or graveyard, but make its attack and defense 0. This is a very deadly card to go and face, especially this is one of the key cards that they prefer to use within the erratic archetype. By special summoning it, I mean, if you've got a clear board, that means then you can then go for your tribute summon and then bring out any dragon normal monster from your hand, deck or graveyard. So you can go for various monsters depending on the level of the monster you've already brought out. And then that means you can go into an instant Xyz play. So you can go, the concern is you can go for some of these very powerful Xyz dragon type monsters they brought into the game recently. And it's quite a concern. Best thing to do if ever you see this card, try and deal with it on summon. Things like bottomless trap hole, any way of getting rid of this card you want to do, or at least negating the effect. Just some way of clearing the board of it to prevent your opponent from extending their combos. Noble Knight Pelinor is a light attribute warrior type level 4 with 1900 attack and 500 defense. Its effect is you can target one Noble Arms equip spell equipped to this card and one face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy them, then draw one card. Also, this card cannot attack for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect of Noble Knight Pelinor once per turn. Of all the Noble Knight players I have faced so far on Duel Links, this is one of the cards they don't tend to run. I suppose you would rather just beat your opponent's census using the equip spells rather than to equip it onto this and then have to trigger this effect, because even though you're drawing a card, it does prevent this card from attacking, and if your opponent has cards which protect them, such as Power of the Guardians, for example, or have their own inbuilt protection, then this effect won't trigger. The next card is Star Seraph Sovereignty. It's a light attribute fairy type level 4 with 800 attack and 2000 defense. Its effect is it cannot be used as material for an Xyz summon, except for an Xyz summon that uses 3 or more monsters as material. If you normal or special summon a Star Seraph monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, draw 1 card. Then you can special summon it if it is a Star Seraph monster. So again, very much like the other one, which was Scepter, it's all about special summoning all 3 of them to be able to go into your Xyz monster. It does have the limitation on that you can only go for those which require 3 or more monsters for a material, but that's generally what the Star Seraph monsters are looking for. High Five the Sky is a normal trap card with the effect, during your battle phase, target 1 face-up Xyz monster that attack this turn can make a second attack during this battle phase. If it does so using this effect, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. I think this card was used during the last battle between Yuma Tsukumo and Astral. It was used ultimately to try and defeat him, but this was one of Yuma's famous sayings, to high five the sky, and it's one of those iconic cards. It was released quite late within the series, near the end as well. Generally speaking, the effect means that your opponent is unable to activate effects, so making a double attack during the same battle phase is a decent effect in and of itself. Halfway to Forever is the final card. It's a normal trap card with the effect, target 2 monsters in your graveyard, special summon both but negate their effects, if any. And if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon 1 light attribute Utopia or Utopic Xyz monster, using only those 2 monsters. This was the song used in the in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal 2, which was the second part of the series, Halfway to Forever. The effect is actually quite decent because that lets you go straight into your Utopia, and it does provide you with that level of advantage. Since it's a trap card, it can be activated during your opponent's turn, and of course if you bring out Utopia, you can then negate your opponent's attacks up to twice, because then you have the 2 Xyz materials attached to Utopia.